Clayton Mitchell.
Well, thank you, Mr Chair. I appreciate the call. I rise on behalf of New Zealand First to take a call for the Charities Amendment Bill, which was once upon a time a Statutes Amendment Bill, and hearing the explanation from the Minister makes perfect sense why it was pulled out of the Statutes Amendment, because of course there was some sort of ambiguity with a number of people from the public sector that sort of cried a little bit foul, and right or wrongly so, they've done that, and now we're finding ourselves in a position which is looking like it's fully supported across the House, and I will join in the chorus of support from New Zealand First to say that we too will support this bill going through the House, sir, because of course it is relatively innocuous, really. It does two things. The first thing, well, it does three things, but the third thing is really not even worth mentioning because it's just a little bit of a grammatical tidy-up. The first thing it does is not permit a person that has had an offence in tax legislation or something of similar, not a good in standing with tax evasion was the word I was thinking of, sir, not to be able to have a position within a charitable organisation or a trust. Now that does make absolute sense, sir. The second part of this is about removing a charitable status from an entity if they do not provide the right information in the right amount of time. And I think it's been 20 working days, which is about a month, which some people may say is a little bit too short. But then, sir, at the end of the day, I think there'd be good reason to remove charitable status if, of course, they weren't nice and quickly giving that information forward so that that can be actually dealt with. But, sir, I'd just like to talk a little bit about these statutes amendment bills that are supposed to be minor, technical and non-controversial, and it does bring me to other bills that we have seen brought into the Statutes Amendment that have had all three of those characteristics, such as the Nook Karako's bill about lost luggage, and of course we've had Matt Ducey's bill about enabling board members to get access to papers online. They have now made themselves into a Statutes Amendment Bill, and that does beg the question. I would say probably some of the most controversial things we have spoken about in the House and the media have picked up on have been those two bills themselves, and may beg the question as how they've actually made themselves into that, I think out of embarrassment by the government, that they actually put them through to obscure...
So back to the bill.
Thank you, sir. Back to the bill, but a great way to sort of obfuscate, if you like. Sir, the elephant in the room, however, is the charities themselves. I think there's been a lot of people since this bill has been tabled who have discussed it, certainly with myself and members of New Zealand First, around the eligibility and genuine nature of what constitutes a charity, sir. And I think some of the things that that have been raised, it's not part of the bill, I know, but it's part of what is actually important to people that have raised it in conjunction with the bill, sir.
We're discussing this bill, so the members should talk about this bill.
But as I mentioned, sir, these were raised as questions to this bill, which raises questions about what constitutes a charity, and we have a number of charities that have got charitable status that may need to be reviewed, sir, and I think that in light of us discussing charities and removing charitable status, that it's worth bringing into this debate and discussion about a potential review overlooking what is considered to be a genuine charity in light of New Zealand's benevolence in putting time and effort and money into these organisations, that I think the people of New Zealand have a right to ask that question. And I guess asking the Minister herself, is this something that is likely to come up in the future?
Well, Order, the whole point is, and the point that I made earlier on is, no, you can't. So it doesn't matter what you're asked about as an MP in relation to that. You talk about this bill, you talk about matters raised in select committee, and no, you can't go and ask the Minister whether she's going to do something about it in the future, and I would have thought that would be clear by now.
Thank you very much for your enlightenment, Mr Chair, and I do have to say that speaking for 5 minutes to one piece of paper can be a little bit difficult, but they are good questions well raised and good points raised.
You don't have to do 5 minutes.
52 seconds to go. I'll see what I can do. Mr Chair, the third part, the part that I wasn't going to mention, but since I've been cut short with my speech, sir, is literally to correct a 2012 drafting error by removing the words of the Chief Executive out of this bill. Sir, we will be supporting this bill as it goes through the House. I have just about filled up 5 minutes of the time, and I think very thoughtfully too, sir, and I know there'll be some good nodding and agreement of people back home listening to it, and I commend this bill moving forward through the House. Thank you.